Imagine Seneca on Twitter. Thousands of years ago, he wrote about silence, restraint, and the wisdom of ignoring fools. Today, we scroll through noise. But buried beneath the chaos is a toolkit, not made of steel, but of thought. 8 ancient tools, sharpened by time, ready to meet the madness of now. You don't need more opinions. You need peace. Let's begin. The storm wasn't outside. It was inside her. Tight chest, shallow breath, 100 thoughts pulling in 100 directions. She had just lost her job, not because she failed, but because someone higher up made a decision she'd never see coming. First came the shock, then the questions. What did I do wrong? What now? How do I fix this? The same questions we all ask when the ground gives way. Epictetus said, "Some things are up to us, and some things are not." That line can change your life, if you let it. Most people don't. Most people react. They spend hours, weeks, years, trying to move the immovable. Rewriting the past, bending people's opinions, controlling outcomes that laugh at our efforts. But what if the secret isn't to win the fight? What if the secret is to stop swinging? Picture a circle. Inside it, your thoughts, your words, your actions. Outside it, everything else, the weather, the economy, other people's opinions, whether they text you back, whether the world gives you a chance. You can rage against the things outside the circle, or you can return to the center, again and again, where your power actually lives. The woman from our story, she sat on the edge of her bed and stared at the wall. For once, she didn't try to solve it. She just breathed, slowly. Then she wrote one thing: "Today I will act where I can act, and I will let go of the rest." That sentence saved her. It didn't give her the job back. It didn't make life fair. But it gave her something better: alignment. She realized, if you do your best with what's yours, the world can take nothing from you. You don't control the wind, but you do control the sail. Now imagine your own life, the things that feel heavy, the things that keep you up at night. Take one of them, just one, and whisper to yourself, "Is this inside my circle?" If the answer is no, then you have a choice. Keep pulling the rope or drop it. The rope never ends, by the way. There is no bottom, no final word, no closure on things you can't control. Just a slow draining of energy, drip by drip, until your fire goes cold. The Stoics knew this, and they didn't just talk about it, they practiced it. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire while mourning his children, facing plagues, and watching his people suffer. Yet he wrote, night after night, in quiet defiance, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Strength, not control. Because this isn't about having power over everything. It's about not giving power to the wrong things." Some will hear this and think, "But I can't. Just do nothing." And that's true. This isn't a retreat. It's a repositioning. When you act from the inside out, from clarity, you're not passive. You're precise. You stop wasting time on storms you can't stop and start building shelter where it matters. So take this first tool. Hold it quietly in your hand. Not a sword, a compass. Let the world do what the world does. Let the circle remind you where to begin. Always from the center. You're holding a cup of coffee, someone bumps into you, and it spills all over your shirt, all over your day. Most people curse, or panic, or try to pretend it didn't happen. But the Stoics would say, you're surprised because you didn't. Rehearse this. They had a name for it: Premeditatio Malorum, the premeditation of evils. Not to attract misfortune, but to tame it, because the mind, left unchecked, does something cruel. It expects everything to go well, and when it doesn't, which is often, it snaps. What if instead you trained yourself to expect the hit, not with dread, not with paranoia, but with calm readiness? Imagine your morning, tomorrow. You wake up a little tired. Your phone lights up with bad news. Traffic is worse than usual. A client cancels. A friend forgets. Now imagine you saw it coming, not in a psychic way, in a stoic way. Before the day begins, you sit in silence. You close your eyes and ask, what might go wrong today? What if the meeting fails? What if I get rejected? What if someone misunderstands me? And you feel those moments in advance, just briefly, like a shadow on the wall. Then you breathe into them, and you say, even this I can bear, even this I can meet with grace. Seneca practiced this often. He would remind himself, not of doom, but of possibility, because when misfortune arrives uninvited, it feels like betrayal. But when it knocks on a door we've already opened, it feels like confirmation. There's freedom in this. Not because bad things won't happen, they will, but because they won't own you. Think of a warrior. She doesn't walk into battle hoping everything will be easy. She imagines the cuts, the noise, the moments of doubt, and when they arrive, she's already moved past panic. She moves straight into action. That's what this tool is. A mental armor, but not made of steel. Made of softness. You bend so you don't break. You don't need to spend hours on this. 1 minute in the morning, 1 minute at night. A quiet rehearsal of what might fall apart. Not to fix it in advance, but to stop fearing the fall. You can even go further. Imagine losing what you love. Not to torture yourself, but to deepen your presence. The Stoics would say, hold your child like they are temporary. Kiss your partner like it might be the last time. Not out of sorrow, but reverence. Everything you touch is borrowed. And when you accept that, even briefly, you start treating life like the miracle it is. You stop sleepwalking. You stop demanding. You start noticing. Your morning coffee tastes stronger. The air on your neck feels sharper. The moment becomes enough. Modern life has trained us to avoid these thoughts, to run from discomfort, to wrap ourselves in cotton and pretend we're safe. But no armor is stronger than clarity, and no fear is weaker than one you've already welcomed. So here's the invitation. Don't wait for the disaster. Meet it first, in your mind. Shake its hand. Sit down with it. See how small it becomes when it's not a stranger, and when the real thing arrives, if it arrives, you'll be ready. Maybe not happy, maybe not at peace, but calm. And in this world, calm is a revolution. Fear isn't the problem. In fact, fear is often a gift, a signal, a flare in the dark. The problem is what happens after the flare. Most of us freeze. We imagine the worst, and then we stop. Not in meditation, in paralysis. But the Stoics had no patience for frozen minds. They believed fear was a message, not a prison, and every message can be translated into motion. It starts like this. You picture something bad, a failure, a loss, a moment you don't want to face. That's normal. That's the mind doing its job. But now, instead of spiraling, you flip it. You ask one question. What would I do if this actually happened? Not, how do I stop it? Not, why? Me? Just, then what? The Stoics practiced this often. They took imagined disasters and broke them into pieces. They replaced the scream with a sequence, and they turned helplessness into a plan. Let's say you're afraid of losing your job. The thought comes like thunder. I'm going to lose everything. Now stop. Flip it. Ask, what's the first thing I'd do that same day? Then, What could I cut to survive? Who could I call? What skills do I still have, no matter what happens? As you walk through it, something strange happens. The fear doesn't disappear, but it shrinks. It loses its mystery. You start seeing stairs instead of cliffs. This is not toxic positivity. You're not pretending it's all okay. You're just reminding yourself there is always a next step. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If it is endurable, then endure it. If it is not, then stop complaining. Your end will come soon enough." Brutal? Maybe. But also liberating, because either way, you move. This tool is about reclaiming the mind's energy, taking it away from fantasy spirals and putting it into motion. Thought, plan, step. 1. Stoic exercise. Take a sheet of paper. Write the fear at the top. Then draw 2 columns. On the left, list what you can do. On the right, what's out of your hands. Then, cross out the right column. Focus only on the left. Maybe that seems simple, but it's not. It's one of the hardest things a human can do, to take fear and walk into it. Picture a soldier before battle. He doesn't wait for courage to arrive. He moves first, and courage meets him halfway. That's the flip. Not from fear to safety, but from fear to readiness. And readiness is power, not in the loud heroic sense, but in the quiet way you tie your shoes even as the world shakes. The way you make tea the day after heartbreak. The way you say, okay, and begin again. We are not statues. We are not ideas. We are people, and people move. So take this fear, whatever it is, and flip it, not to erase it, but to soften its grip. Turn the monster into a map. Ask, what's one thing I can do today to prepare, not panic? Do that thing. Then breathe, then rest. You've already won more than most. It didn't go your way. The door closed. The love faded. The plan unraveled. You tried. You worked. You hoped. But still, it broke. And now you sit there, staring at the pieces, asking the ancient question, why? The Stoics had an answer, a radical one. They didn't just say accept it, they said love it, Amor Fati, love of fate. Not because it's good, not because it's easy, but because it is. Think of fire. When you throw wood into it, it doesn't resist. It consumes. It transforms. The Stoic mind works the same way. You lost the job? That's your new teacher. Someone betrayed you. That's your test in forgiveness. You failed publicly. That's the fuel for your humility. The Stoic doesn't just endure life, they use it. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." That line isn't comfort, it's challenge. It dares you to stop asking why it happened and start asking, what can this make of me? This is not about denying grief or skipping over pain. Grieve fully, mourn honestly, but underneath, keep a quiet voice alive, one that says, I was made for this. That's what Amor Fati is. Not the love of a perfect life, the love of this life, this moment, this mess, this silence. Because even when your plans collapse, you remain. Even when the script changes, you're still here, breathing, learning, reshaping. There's a kind of beauty in the unexpected, a wisdom only pain can carve. The Stoics knew this, and they didn't flinch. Epictetus lost everything, his freedom, his health, his home, and yet he said, do not seek for things to happen the way you want them to. Rather, wish that what happens happen the way it happens, then you will be happy. That's the paradox. The moment you stop demanding from life, it gives you more. Not what you asked for, something deeper. Growth, resilience, peace. It's okay to cry, to curse, to feel the sharp edge of disappointment. But let that be the beginning, not the end. Amor Fati isn't a feeling. It's a posture, a decision to meet the moment without resistance, a vow to say, even this I choose to love. Not because you enjoy it, but because you trust that somehow it belongs. And maybe years from now, you'll look back and see how the worst thing that happened to you was the thing that shaped your finest self, not in spite of it, but because of it. You reach for the warm, the soft blanket, the extra pillow, the glowing screen. Comfort surrounds you. And yet, something feels off, like you've grown weaker in the middle of so much ease. The Stoics noticed this a long time ago. They lived in palaces and walked among slaves, but they saw the same truth. Too much comfort makes you soft, and softness, unchecked, makes you afraid. So they did something strange. They practiced being uncomfortable, on purpose. Seneca would sleep on the floor once a month. He would wear rough clothes, eat the plainest food, and ask himself while chewing dry bread, is this what I feared? The answer was always no. That's the power of voluntary discomfort. You meet hardship before it meets you, and you find it smaller than you thought. Not because you're strong yet, but because you stopped hiding. Imagine starting your day with a cold shower, not to punish yourself, but to wake something ancient in you, something resilient. The water hits, your breath catches, and your first thought is, I can survive this. And then later, when the real challenges come, the meeting, the silence, the heartbreak, you've already built the muscle, not physically, mentally. Or imagine skipping a meal, not out of restriction, but as a ritual. To remember what hunger feels like. To remind yourself that you're not ruled by every urge. The Stoics weren't masochists. They weren't obsessed with suffering. They simply understood this. Comfort is a drug, and the more you take it, the more powerless you become when it's gone. But discomfort, chosen in small doses, is a medicine, one that rebuilds your capacity to face life head-on. Today, our comforts are digital. The screen scrolls endlessly. The dopamine never stops dripping. So try fasting from your phone, a morning without notifications, an hour of silence in the middle of noise. You'll feel it, the itch, the grasping, the sudden emptiness, and if you stay with it long enough, the emptiness turns into presence. You begin to notice again the weight of your breath, the shape of your thoughts, the sound of your life without filters. Voluntary discomfort isn't about proving something. It's about remembering something. Who you are without the extras. What you can endure when everything unnecessary is stripped away. It's a test. A quiet rebellion against the narrative that you need to be constantly entertained, constantly fed, constantly protected. Diogenes, one of the most extreme Stoics, lived in a barrel, owned almost nothing, slept on the street. And when Alexander the Great offered him anything he wanted, Diogenes simply said, "Step aside, you're blocking my sunlight." That's not just detachment, that's power. You don't need to sleep on concrete or live in a cave, but you can turn down the heat. Take the stairs, carry your own bags, face your fears without a buffer. Each act whispers, I can do with less. I can bear the cold. I am not afraid of life's edges. And the more you whisper that, the more the noise of fear quiets. Today's world says, seek comfort, maximize ease, avoid pain at all costs. The Stoic says, train for life, choose challenge, find the calm inside the storm. So take this discomfort, choose it before it chooses you. Let it sharpen you. Let it strip away the false belief that comfort is safety, because true safety is knowing, Even when it's cold, even when it's hard, I'm still here. The day ends and the world goes quiet. The lights dim, the noise settles, but your mind keeps spinning. A missed moment, a sharp word, an unfinished task. You carry it all into the dark, hoping sleep will wipe the slate clean. But the Stoics didn't rely on sleep for peace. They wrote, not for an audience, not to be clever or poetic, but to meet themselves honestly, every night, without judgment. Marcus Aurelius called it meditations, but it wasn't meant to be read. It was just him, alone with his thoughts, asking hard questions in a soft voice. What did I do today? Where did I fall short? Where did I act with virtue? Not to punish, not to impress, just to see. That's the quiet gift of Stoic journaling. It's not about writing the perfect sentence. It's about noticing, with clarity, without defense. You don't need hours. You don't need fancy tools. Just a few minutes, a pen, a willingness to face the mirror. You sit, you breathe, you ask, what controlled me today? What did I try to control that wasn't mine? When did I live from my center? When did I forget who I am? At first, the answers might be surface level. I was tired. I got annoyed in traffic. But keep going. Underneath the noise, there's always something truer. Maybe you were impatient because you were afraid. Maybe you were quiet because you doubted your voice. Maybe you were harsh because you felt unseen. When you write that down, you don't become weak, you become real, and real people can change. The Stoics believed that reflection was the root of growth, not loud ambition, not external praise, just a quiet willingness to ask, who was I today, and who do I want to be tomorrow? You can keep it simple, one line a day. Today I did well. Today I drifted. Tomorrow I will return. Or you can go deeper. Write out a conversation with your fear, with your anger, with your past self. You'll be surprised at what shows up when you give your mind a voice on paper. The point isn't to control the mind. It's to witness it, to create space between the stimulus and the story. Because that space is where freedom begins. And with time, the practice becomes a ritual, a moment of grounding, a place where the outside world stops pushing and you start listening. Your journal doesn't need to be profound. It needs to be honest. Write like no one's watching, because no one is. The Stoics didn't write to change the world. They wrote to stay unchanged by the world. So tonight, when the noise dies down and the stillness creeps in, don't rush to sleep. Don't scroll one more time. Sit with your day. Thank it. Learn from it and leave it behind. Tomorrow will come. But tonight, let your pen close the page, not just of the journal, but of the day itself. Close your eyes, not to escape, but to rise, not in body, but in mind. You are still here, sitting in the same chair, but you are also not here. You lift slowly, first above your home, then your street, then the city that rushes and hums around you. Up, further. The roads turn to veins, the cars to dots, the voices to wind. You rise above the noise, the meetings, the notifications, the disappointments, the praise, until the problems you held like weights now look like dust on a map. This was the Stoic secret, the view from above. A mental zoom out so powerful it quiets even the loudest mind. Because we forget sometimes how small we are, and in forgetting our size, we exaggerate our burdens. Marcus Aurelius did this often. He would imagine the earth, not as his empire, but as a blue speck floating in silence. He would picture generations, living, dying, forgotten. and then he'd write with calm hands. How small a part of the boundless abyss of time is assigned to each man, not to make himself feel meaningless, but to become free. Because when you zoom out, you remember, the judgment you fear will pass, the regret you carry will fade, the moment you're in is not forever. And that's not depressing, it's sacred. The Stoics didn't believe in detachment out of apathy. They believed in distance as a form of clarity. When you're too close, everything looks urgent. But from above, you see what really matters. You see how strange it is to carry grudges, how silly it is to compare, how much time is wasted chasing things that don't last. Imagine now 1 billion lives unfolding at once. Arguments you'll never hear, joys you'll never know, stories that will rise and vanish like morning mist, and among them, you, one flicker of awareness in the wide sky. And somehow, that flicker matters, not because it's the center of the universe, but because it knows it's not. From here, your breath slows, your shoulders drop. The urgency melts into perspective. You remember that you are both small and sacred, that your pain is real, but not permanent, that your story matters, not because it's grand, but because it's honest. And with this view, you begin to choose differently. You speak with more patience. You listen with less ego. You move with intention, not impulse. The view from above is not a place, it's a posture. One you can return to again and again, whenever the world pulls you down into the urgent and the trivial. Pause, breathe, rise, not to escape your life, but to return to it with wiser eyes. Imagine starting each day with this shift, just 1 minute of cosmic quiet before the noise begins. One gentle reminder that you are not trapped, just too close. Pull back, soften, see the whole. Then re-enter your life as if you had just arrived from the stars, and everything before you is precious. You won't live forever. You know that, of course. Everyone does. But knowing is not the same as remembering. And remembering, really remembering, changes everything. The Stoics carried this truth not as a shadow, but as a light. Memento Mori. Remember that you must die. Not to feel fear, but to feel alive. Every day you wake up is one less day you have, not in a morbid sense, in a clarifying one. The hourglass is always moving, and the sand never flows upward. Most people don't want to think about this. Death is uncomfortable. It interrupts the illusion that we have time. So we scroll, we delay, we act as if there's always a later. But the Stoic doesn't avoid the truth. The Stoic befriends it. Imagine a calendar, not of meetings, but of mortality. Each square a week of your life, some already darkened. The rest, waiting. What would change if you looked at it every morning? Not to panic, not to rush, but to wake up. Wake up to the fact that today is not a rehearsal. Wake up to the idea that your words, your choices, your presence, they count. Seneca wrote, "Let us prepare our minds as if we'd come to the very end of life. Let us postpone nothing, because the end is coming, maybe not soon, maybe not for years, but it is coming, and no one escapes." And that's what makes this moment so rare. This conversation, this breath, this chance to choose who you are. Picture your last day. Who are you with? What do you say? What do you wish you'd done more of, or less? That's the audit. The final question paper with no makeup test. The Stoics use this audit in reverse. Not to judge themselves, but to guide themselves. 3 questions. Simple, direct. 1. If I died tonight, what would I regret? 2. What am I pretending not to know? 3. What truly matters, and am I acting like it? These questions are not easy, but they are the doorway to meaning. You don't need to answer them all at once. Just hold them. Walk with them. Let them shape the way you speak. Listen, spend, forgive. Death is not the enemy. Forgetting you'll die, that's the real danger. Because when you forget, you waste. You waste time on resentment. You waste your breath explaining yourself to people who don't listen. You waste your energy trying to impress instead of connect. But when you remember, truly remember, you shift. You say what needs to be said. You let go of what no longer fits. You love more fiercely. You live more freely. Memento Mori isn't about darkness. It's about depth. About not skating across the surface of your own existence. The Stoics didn't dwell in graves. They walked in gardens. They looked at the stars and smiled, because they knew this will end, and therefore this matters. So tonight, when you lie down, imagine that it could be the last time. Let that thought land gently. Let it make you grateful, and let tomorrow, if it comes, be a gift you don't waste. You've been here the whole time, sitting, listening, breathing, letting these ancient voices move through you like wind through trees. You didn't shout. You didn't run. You just stayed and remembered. What did you carry away? Maybe it was the circle of control, the quiet center where your power lives, or the practice of picturing what could go wrong and walking calmly into the fog. Maybe it was the turn, that moment where fear became movement and movement became strength. Maybe it was the fire of Amor Fati, loving not the idea of life, but the shape it actually takes. Or the decision to step outside your comfort, to sit in the cold on purpose and feel your own resilience rise. Or the pen at night, the honest words the mirror held up to the soul, or the rising above, watching your life from the stars, remembering how small the noise truly is. Or maybe it was the whisper that you will die, and that this makes every breath sacred. These are not lessons to memorize. They are tools to carry. And like any tools, they only work when used. The Stoics didn't want you to be perfect. They wanted you to be present, to meet life with open eyes and steady hands, to rise after each fall, to speak with virtue when it's easier to stay silent, to hold your values like a torch in the wind, not because the wind will stop, but because you've decided not to let it blow you out. So here's your kit. It doesn't weigh much. It fits in your mind, in your pocket, in the space between thought and response. And inside it are 8 things. The power to act where you can act. The courage to imagine loss without fear. The instinct to move, not freeze. The discipline to welcome what is. The strength to choose discomfort over illusion. The habit of reflection. The gift of perspective. And the humility of remembering that time is finite. You don't need them all at once. You don't need to master them. Just pick one. Carry it for a while. Use it when things shake. Return to it when you forget, because you will forget. That's part of being human. The mind drifts. The ego stirs. The world shouts. But then, something happens. A pause. A breath. A voice inside that says, "Come back." And you will. And when you do, the tools will still be here. Waiting. Ready. You are not alone. These thoughts have echoed for centuries, from Greece to Rome to the quiet space you now sit in. And they'll keep echoing, not because they're old, but because they're true. So thank you for walking this path, for listening not just with ears, but with presence, for choosing stillness in a world of speed. If these ideas helped you, share them, not as doctrine, but as light. A word here, a gesture there, a way of being that makes others breathe easier just by being near you. And if this voice has been good company, let it know. Leave a thought, a reflection, a reminder that someone else walked this road too. Until next time, walk gently, choose wisely, and remember, peace is not out there. It's already yours. You just have to return to it. If something in this journey stayed with you, a line, a feeling, a shift, let it live beyond this moment. Leave a comment, not for the algorithm, but for someone else who may need to read your reflection and feel less alone. If you found value here, consider liking the video or subscribing for more calm in a chaotic world. This channel isn't about content, it's about returning, again and again, to what matters. And if you ever drift, we'll be here, quietly waiting.